seeking some guidance. Now, how can we teach these people our Bible classes we attend to, not to make like some activities that bring us closer to God, not turning them as daily routines. Like sometimes, if you are, let me take this minister, like if I'm a singer, it's like praise and worship is the must part of the service. So once I finish praise and worship, but it means I've finished to serve God. How can we minister to this so that people can identify routine and also ministering to God that can impact our lives as Christians?
I think the best way to clarify and to help them see the difference between a ritual and actual worship is to talk about it, and point out where, or point out that there that the mistake can be made, that you would just do the routine and you would do the ritual and you would pray the prayer, but it doesn't mean anything to you. You're just doing it so someone else can see you, and then and say, "Oh, you're a great Christian." When Jesus told the Pharisees who did that 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 they were hypocrites. So, if I understand your question, how do we keep that from happening? Um, I think the best thing to do is to talk about the difference between the two, so that they'll go, oh, now I know what you're talking about. So that talk about the difference between the two, so that maybe they'll say to themselves, I think I've been like that. I think that I have been doing this just to be seen. And so when you talk about it, it sheds light on, and it informs them, and then you're able to talk about it more. So I think probably the best way to keep uh, the people from your people in your church from falling into this trap is to talk about it. The difficulty for those of us who are really involved in church world, the difficulty for those of us who are really involved in doing things in the church is that it can become a routine, and it can become, we can get in what we call a rut, and we can um, leave God out, and so and we're just so busy that we think we're doing God a favor, and now He owes us. Um, and so I think, for the sake of our children, if we're so that our wives and our children won't um, begin to do this also, is to sit down with them and have this type of conversation where you're able to explain that this is more bad than it is good. You know, Jesus in John chapter 4, he told the woman at the well, he said, God is a spirit. He's not this. And if you're going to worship this, you're missing God. And if you're going to worship God, you got to do away with this. And so he told the woman at the well, you say that you're supposed to worship over there on Mount Gerizim, But those who worship God must worship in spirit and in truth. And by spirit, he means a building, or a routine or a fetish like this cannot contain the Spirit of God. It does more damage and gets in the way than it does to help people get to God, because we are prone to depend on something like this. It's easier to do this because I can take it and and say, well, I've done it, now I'm finished. It's easier to do this than it is to go before God and be in his presence and read his word, because when you do that, you can't lie. I can go through the routine and ignore my guilty conscience. I can go through this habit all day long and ignore the sin in my own life. But when I get God's word and I start reading it, I can't. I can't ignore the Spirit of God um, speaking to my conscience. And so this these things, whatever form they come in, they get in the way. And so if we can have, so if I understood your question, how do I help my family and our church to keep from uh, depending on this. I think the best way to do it is to have a conversation about it, and if they see, if your wife and your children and the people in your church see a corresponding and appropriate amount of humility in your life, I think God uses that as well to open our eyes that we're in an authentic relationship with Him, not trying to manipulate God by jumping through these religious hoops. I hope that helps.
Yes, yes. Amen.